which is lovely to see. Just to kind of give you a bit of a heads up on this evening and what to expect. I hope you don't feel that this is cringe and awkward, because that is not at all the vibe we're going for. This is just all about talking about dating and getting us all having an open conversation around what it's like to date well in a Christian setting. So yeah, just a massive thank you to start with for coming. We just want to say you're so welcome if you're from St. Dee's, if you're from a different church. Everybody is just so welcome, and it's really good to see you. Will's going to come up in a mo, and he's going to be giving us the content for tonight. But just to give you a bit of context around why I'm stood here. So I work for church, and I have been dating in the Christian world for a while. I've got some terrible stories which I'm not going to share tonight, but also I've actually had some really good experiences as well. So I would just love to encourage everyone to be really open to hearing what Will's going to say tonight, but also, just to try and see this as, well, I think Will's going to give quite a lot of sort of examples tonight around sort of context of dating and statistics, and we can, I think as girls particularly, we can kind of look at the slight imbalance potentially, and we can maybe sometimes be like, oh, the guys, they're doing this or whatever. And I just want to say tonight, like, the guys who are here, thank you so much for being here. Some of you I know are here kind of in solidarity with us women, and I just want to encourage us tonight, as women particularly who are here, to say thanks to the guys who are here. These are the good guys, and just a big thank you for that. But I won't just keep on jabbering on. But Will, yeah.
As well as make sure that that we can welcome you. It's great that Laura's here. As she said, thanks you all for being here in the room. I know this isn't an easy setting to be in. We have got quite a lot of people who signed up who said they're going to come on week 2. They're all hiding in the bushes outside at the moment, and we'll see whether they turn up or not. But it's great that you're here, and as I said, everyone who's in the room, we're all here to try and change the conversation around dating and relationships in the church context. And we hope you have lots of fun. As Laura said, it's hopefully non-cringe. I did have these lights on slightly pinky earlier on.
And I made him change them, just to be clear.
Got to be honest, Laura's like, let's just lose the pink. I think the blue is the way forward. And I'm going to go through a few of the sort of outlines of the course tonight. But what I want to say on our behalf is that we're here as a resource for you, and we'd love to chat to you afterwards, and obviously over these 3 sessions. And also, I think we might be doing a cheeky pub trip after this too.
We are. Everybody is welcome.
Everyone is welcome. We're going to go, I think, to the White Horse en masse. So if you want to hang around, I'm going to hang around a bit, because I know sometimes people want to ask questions as well. It's a good space to do that. But the hope is also there's some social value to what we do tonight as well. So if you'd like to join us at the end, then you're really, really welcome.
And some of you might be sitting here thinking, why on earth is Will doing a dating course when he's married with 3 children? Will, why are you running a dating course when you're married with 3 children?
Well, it's a really great question. What I really hope not to do is to patronise you or annoy you. I might do that, but I'm hoping not to. I think I've got quite a checkered dating history. It's quite an old story now. So fortunately, I've been married 18 years. Actually, this month,
it's quite
a long time. Been with my wife for 20 years. So it's quite a long story. It's an old story, but it's an important story because I grew up in quite an intense Christian environment. I lived quite a dualistic life as a young guy. I definitely made some horrible mistakes in the dating world. I'm sure there could boos and hisses, and you'll all relate in the crowd. But I think what I recognise looking back on my childhood, and I went to a church where there was 2 teenagers, me and my friend Tim, still one of my best friends. We had no understanding of how to do this. If there'd been this many people who were single in my church, that would have been a miracle. But we went elsewhere, sort of thinking, how are we going to find a relationship? And it all got very messy. And looking back, I just wish someone had offered something other than I Kissed Dating Goodbye, which was the book of choice when I was a teenager. He then recanted the book recently and then sadly got divorced and recanted his faith, I think, as well. It's not a great story.
No, it's not a great story.
But
Let's move on, Will. Let's move on.
But that book was the sort of dating narrative around my church upbringing. I Kissed Dating Goodbye. So that shows you how little there was on there. Or there was tapes. Do you remember tapes? I don't know. I'm really dating myself now, by a woman called Joyce Huggett, who basically told you what you could touch and what you couldn't touch, which was also pretty difficult to manage when you're a teenage boy. So I worked at HTB for 7 years before I came here to St D's. And I saw exactly the same problems and challenges facing people in church there as I do here. You might think there's some utopia out there of loads and loads and loads of single people having a great time. I can tell you, I've worked in 2 of London's really big churches with tons and tons of single people, exactly the same challenges. And that makes me think that we've all got to work individually on a way of engaging with this material that's different, and actually that change doesn't come by diving into a great big pool of people with the same struggles, but actually by getting eagle-high observation, saying, actually, what's it like to go through this and come out the other side? And so I hope you feel my heart for you tonight as we move through this material.
Great.
Laura, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Great. Well, why don't you take a seat and we'll get going. I've got some slides. Please don't feel the need to take any notes. I can make everything available to you. And we've got an hour and a half for these next 3 Wednesday evenings. And I'm going to let you into a little secret, which is that I'm streaming these to the St D's website. And the reason I'm doing that is not so next week you can go, oh, I really don't want to go in the room. I'm just going to stay at home and eat my food and not turn up and then watch online, because now I know they're online. Please don't do that. They're there for you if you are unable to make it because you really can't make it, but you don't want to miss a session. So please catch up if you need to. Also, can I ask you not to share them? And the reason for that, unless you've got a friend who works in Madagascar and can't come on a dating course, the reason is that there's value in us all being in the room together. Actually, one of the main challenges we're facing in this sort of dating scene is that it's so disparate and everyone's working on their own. So there's solidarity in the room. So I just want to really encourage you, if you can, keep coming back into the room as we move forward. Quite a lot of material from me. And I guess we'll explain why that is, but also I'm going to give you some opportunities just to buzz amongst the people around you, and I'll talk about how those parameters will work in just a moment. But just to feel super relaxed, I'm not going to get any of you up on stage to tell your dating disaster stories or to offer yourself as a potential dating candidate for anyone. So the most important thing is that you feel super relaxed. I feel super relaxed for you also to sort of say, hey, Will, hold on a minute, can you just a quick question. I don't want to go kind of divert too hard, but I'll try and answer questions on the hoof. So it's a bit more two-way than it might otherwise be. So let's get going. The first thing I want to say is thank you for being here. And it has been, I cannot imagine how difficult the last 18 months has been. So hear me when I say to you, I empathize absolutely. I'm a coach as well as a priest, and I coach quite a few single people in the business world, and I've heard their pain over this last 18 months, particularly around dating. I was working with Joy, our ordinand here, just this week, just to get my head up to speed about the way in which online dating has transformed the dating scene in the last 18 months, even from when I last did the course. And I know that it's accelerated significantly. So I want to be relevant to you where that's concerned. But the first thing to say is, thank you so much for being here. And I know this is hard. If it wasn't hard, we wouldn't have a course, and that would be straightforward. But because it is hard, we have got a course. And I just want to say a little bit about the course as is. The first thing is this course is absolutely not a gold standard, 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, amazing, I came on the dating course and I found a husband or a wife and now I'm happily married and you should go on it too. That's not what this is all about. I'd love it to be, and actually I think I've had 9 marriages come out of the dating course so far. Someone came to church the other day with a baby and said, I was on the dating course and I asked this girl out afterwards and this is the product. So that was a relief, but I don't want to set expectations that high. I just want to say, coincidentally, when we change something, something changes. and I run a charity called Mindstar Foundation. You might have heard of it, supporting people with emotional mental health issues in the church. And we always say, I work with 2 psychiatrists and a psychologist, and we always say, when you change something, something else changes. So the push the door principle, if you keep banging on a locked door and you don't get anywhere, you just get frustrated, but you often find there's a different door that opens and you can unlock the other door from the opposite side. So I want you to kind of imagine this environment as an opportunity to change the script. And the script that we're going to change is not necessarily the script that's out there, that's the script that's in here for you guys. So that's what we're going to be working on over these few sessions. Let's set out a few, now, am I going to make this technology work? Presenting tips. Laws, I might need you to, would you mind? I'm so sorry. Yeah, if you just tap on. I'm so sorry, there's a technological problem straight away, which was, this should be working right now on my screen. I should just be able to swipe. The first thing we want to outline are just the rules. This isn't a kind of draconian set of rules, but the rules are, I've already broken my rule, which is no talk of marriage or sex. One of the weird things about Christian dating settings is that you go from like absolutely zero to total hero within one step. It's like you talk about dating and straight away people start talking about marriage. And if you talk to, if you're pastor or, talking about dating, they're quickly, this is my wife and this is how we met. And you're like, yeah, but how did you get there? And the other way in which certainly my experience of dating talks, in church were all about sex. And it was like, why are we having a conversation about how to spend the money that you've won on the lottery when you haven't even entered yet? And there's that weird idea about sex. We start talking about this stuff and he's thinking, I'm not even anywhere near that. So how can we get from A to B? So I want to start right at the very beginning of the story. The second thing is, I said, we're here to learn not to date. So this isn't a sort of speed dating opportunity. Lucy, are you here? Or Susie, would you mind just opening the back so dear Laura isn't just staring at a screen of blackness, just so she can see straight through? Okay, thank you, Laura. She's my colleague, so I've got to be careful, otherwise I'm going to get serious trouble. So we're here to learn not to date, but that's not to say that, obviously, in this setting, afterwards in the bar, you might meet someone to have a chat to. But I don't want anyone here to feel uncomfortable or to feel like someone's looking at them or sidling along the pew to kind of get a little closer to them, because that would just make this environment feel unsafe and uncomfortable. Laura's already said, let's thank the guys who are in the room. There is a massive statistical challenge facing Christian women in the church today. And we need to acknowledge that, face that absolute reality, not pretend that there isn't. But what I don't want anyone to do is give the guys evils. Yeah, this is you. Yeah, this is your fault. Because these are the guys who are actually in the room. They're with us. So we want to kind of just thank them for being here. And there is a whole load of other guys who are coming on week 2. So that's good news too. And the final thing I want to say here is about disagreeing, if you like, without dishonoring one another. We all have different opinions around dating because it's a heart story for many of us. And we will have different experiences, and the result of that is that we will come to different conclusions. I am not for 1 minute in your head or thinking that I can propose exactly what you should or should not do. I'm just presenting some material for you, if you like, to play with, to be curious about, and to bat around to a point where you can say, well, actually, this is my opinion, and I'm holding fast to that. So don't feel that you have to take my word for it. I want us to be able to disagree comfortably, but also to disagree honorably. And the best place to start when you're trying to learn something new is to define what it is you're trying to do. And we're going to spend quite a bit tonight as we get kind of date ready, trying to define what dating really is. And I always find it helpful to start with a definition. This is the definition that I created for the dating course. Investing in an attractional relationship with a view to determining its suitability for deeper commitment. Now, when you're in the bar afterwards, don't go up to someone and say, hello there, are you interested in investing in an attractional relationship with a view to determining its suitability for deeper commitment? I don't think that's a great chat-up line. I want to be honest with you, though. A dating course, just the terminology is kind of clunky, a little awkward, and potentially a little cheesy. We thought about alternatives like the courtship course and thought that we wouldn't go there, and definitely the hookup course was off limits straight away. So So, there isn't good terminology around dating. And part of the challenge we face, and you all know, no doubt, that this course is a course, it's for everyone, but primarily my audience here are Christian people who are looking to date other Christian people. The challenge we have with the terminology is that the word dating means something different to so many people. Think about your own experience for a minute. I wonder if you felt that you were dating, and yet the person you were dating didn't think you were dating. Quite a lot of people can relate to that story. We've been out for like 3 dates. We're dating. Oh no, I was just kind of being friends. No, you weren't. No, yeah, well, I was just being friends. I mean, no, this was a date. That was definitely a date. If you found yourself in that level of ambiguity. When I was trying to date my now wife, I'd obviously had a bad backstory, and she didn't have a bad dating backstory, and I knew that, so I was trying to be like really cautious about getting everything right, because this time I was going to get it right. And I invited her to this suave Italian restaurant, which I couldn't afford because I was a student at the time. And I was like, I'd like to take you out for dinner. Did everything right. And I waited in the restaurant, and she was late. And then she came in like gym kit. I'm like proper, like full on. I've been working out. And I was like, oh, hi. And the first thing she said is, this is not a date. I was like, oh, that's awkward, because this is like the most romantic Italian restaurant in Oxford. And I'm like, okay, what is this? She says, well, I'm only here because I've got a lot of questions to ask you. Number one, are you a virgin? That was how the conversation began, and now we're married, so there you go. Now, the questions around this, just to be clear, is that our estimation of what a date is and what someone else's estimation of what a date are quite often quite different. And if we don't know what we're trying to do, then we're always going to get wounded along the road. And so I want you to adopt, if you like, an understanding of what we're trying to do tonight around defining what dating actually is. And I want to just highlight these 3 words. The first one is investing. Investing. Because it seems to me that many of you are victim of a dating culture which is about taking, not putting in. And that means that you maybe have experienced that sense of actually someone saying, oh, oh, you're attractive, or I want you on my arm, or I want to take you out, or you look good, but only when it fits my kind of agenda. What's it look like to put into something rather than take out? Because we have quite a commoditized experience of life, we can also find ourselves taking out rather than putting in, because, hey, that's what everyone else does. The first thing is we want to change the rules around by saying we want to invest in an attractional relationship. The second thing I want to say to you is that this is a church, and I want to tell you absolutely that attraction is important. So some of you will have heard from Christian leaders things like, it doesn't matter what someone looks like, it's all about the heart. And you're going, really? The Lord, speak to my heart. Lord, speak to my heart. Change my taste. The reality is that attraction is important. I believe that God has created us in his image, and that he's created us uniquely, and actually there's someone who finds someone else attractive. That's a gift, but attraction's significant and important, and it's not something to write off. And I've met quite a lot of unhappy Christians who've sort of forced them through the reality that they don't find someone attractive, that they've dated them anyway because, hey, they're a guy and they're a girl, and well, the Lord must be in it, so let's go for it. So I want you to kind of get away from that idea and say, actually, attraction is important to me. And then we're asking about the intentions here by saying, well, look, we've got a view to determining something. We're trying to work out, is this right for deeper commitment? And this is one of the key bugbears that kind of Joy brought out of my conversation with her just the other day, was the fact that quite a lot of people are in the dating scene for its own sake. It's like, hey, I'm dating. Like, that's something that I do. Like, I go to the gym and I'm also dating. Dating is an activity in itself, but I want to say to you guys that dating is an activity with an end in mind. And the end in mind is to try and work out whether a particular relationship is suitable for deeper commitments. There's an actual destination here. And again, I don't want to pick on the guys who are in the room, but we want to really adopt that manifesto, that dating is not a sort of fun activity that boosts our sense of self-esteem. It's a serious enterprise with a view to entering into a relationship based around deeper commitment. And I'd love you just to take a couple of moments with people around you to discuss how close to this definition your experience of dating has been thus far. So you might just want to introduce yourself to someone. Okay, we're going to take a few minutes. How close is your experience in the real world of dating to this particular definition? Lewis, I'm just going to try and fix that. Okay, let's come back together. Am I on? No. 1, 2, 1, 2. Great. Is that on? Great. Let's come back together. I guess from the response to that particular question, I can tell that your experience of dating isn't very close, largely, to what you are reading there on the screen. And part of what we're trying to do here is say, actually, we are going to try and work to change the culture which we exist in. Now, that might seem like an impossible challenge, but in the context of the churches that we belong to, we have an opportunity to seed out information to do things differently. And I really believe that if we all were to hold others accountable to this standard and ourselves accountable to this standard, significant things would change. Ultimately, we can't change other people's activity, but we can change our own. So we can make a decision today to say, actually, I'm going to work in a slightly different way to the way in which I have been treated. And that can be hard, that can be challenging. I
I got it working. Yeah, thanks. I did that myself. And so we're going to do a little bit of work on ourselves tonight, which can be a little painful. I've put up the little cactus here because what we're bringing to the table is not neutral. It's really weird. If you think about everything that we do in life, we tend to be relatively objective. We recognize that we lack training. We often need to be trained and become self-aware in order to be good or effective in the field of our work or influence. Yet dating is one of those things which no one says, hey, let me train you for one of the most important activities of your life, or give you any kind of understanding for what it is you're trying to achieve. And we always believe that we're being quite objective, but actually we're typically bringing these things, our experiences, our wounds, our mistakes, our expectations, our frustrations, and most importantly, our self-esteem, which is the kind of energy behind quite a lot of the challenges we face in the dating world. Now, again, I don't want to be one of those smug married people like, oh yeah, I've got it sorted, let me help you. I've got the answers. That is so difficult. And I remember being a young guy trying to work out, who I was in the context of relationships that I was in. And I hurt people and I was hurt by people. The reality is that cycle goes on and on and on, often because we're looking for love and affirmation and understanding in the eyes of other people, and they're often not ready to give it to us. So what I'm bringing is really, really significant, seeing as the vehicle that we're driving is only as roadworthy as its previous experience. If we're rolling onto the scene with blown up tires and an overheated radiator, then we're not going to get far down this road. So I want you to think, when you react or respond to a dating opportunity, what's driving you? Is fear driving you? This looks too good to be true. I need to step away. Is a lack of confidence driving you? I need to submit and I need to be be placating and easygoing in order to be liked. Is aggression driving you? I'm going to take command of this situation and I'm not going to get hurt this time. When it comes to dating, we will have a kind of a mechanism of defense. And Anna Freud, Sigmund's daughter, I think was much more effective and intelligent than her father ever was, proposed a kind of understanding of what we call reaction formation. What she said was that when we engage with others, we form reaction on the basis of our previous pain and experience. So we become prickly cactuses because we've been wounded in the past. Now, imagine that your wounds, unconscious to you, were having a significant effect on your ability to make long-lasting and positive connection with other people. A healthy start is to begin to engage with what I'm bringing to the dating scene. So what's it really like? What is the scene really like? Well, again, I can go back into the 1990s and bore you with raves in fields and other things which seem really old hat, tapes, which I've already mentioned. I'm showing my age. I was talking about the Berlin Wall coming down the other day. Everyone was looking at me really blankly, and I realized that half the people hadn't been born before the millennium, which I thought was a really important part of my life. Anyway, we digress. What's it really like out there? And I guess, I used to run the marriage course and the pre-marriage course at HTB, and obviously the dating course, and we ran in order to create this course, a study with a guy called Sam Verby, an MA in statistics on the experiences of single people at HTB. I think we polled 450 of them. And what we found was a relatively depressing scene, where the perception was that everyone was dating regularly. But what we found at HTB was that most of our congregants who were single, who'd kind of offered us information or interview on relating to this particular course, had less than 2 what they call quality dates in any 12-month period. That was a remarkably small amount of quality date. What they kind of might have encountered were some very short dates or quite a lot of online activity which hadn't actually come to anything significant. Now, I realize, again, from talking to some of the team here over the last few days, just in preparation for tonight, that the online thing has taken preeminence now to most of the in-person dating experience. And the online activity around dating to make you feel like something is happening is kind of proliferating, and alongside that, quite a few difficult things. So let's name some of the monsters in the room. Because I always think if we've got them out there, if we can identify them, we can not just kind of say, actually, that's negative and detrimental, but also I might be invested in this behavior and I want to change. So a few of the things that we might express to restate reality. The first one was what we call non-exclusive dating. So if you go back to our dating definition, we are talking about investing in a relationship with a view to determining its suitability for deeper commitment. Now, it seems to me an oxymoron, the idea that you could invest in multiple relationships with that same commitment, that same view to find outcome. And yet, what I understand, particularly in the online scene, is that people have 9 or 10 irons in the fire on the view that actually I can sort of see which one's hot, and then I'll kind of go with that for a season, and then if that one goes well, great, but if that one doesn't go well, it's okay because there's 8 others that I might pick up at this opportunity. Now, we discussed what's it look like then, and at what point should dating become exclusive? At what point are you meeting and encountering people, and at what point are you choosing to make an investment? And there's quite a lot of grey area around that. We're going to have a little discussion about this in a few moments, so I'd love you to share your experiences. There was a book that Henry Cloud wrote a couple of years ago, How to Find a Date Worth Keeping. Lots of you read it like you read I Kissed Dating Goodbye. The trouble was that Henry was writing, and I love Henry, I love his material, I've been using it for years, particularly the boundary stuff that he's written, which is great. He's so Americanized. His material on dating is not relevant to the UK scene. Because actually, if you spend any time in America outside of the sort of the metropolis, the sort of centers of kind of the more liberal centers of LA and New York, DC, you find that the estimation of what dating is really low key. Dating is like, hey, how you doing? Fancy getting a milkshake after school? That's dating. And Henry says you should have as many dates as you possibly can with as many people as you possibly can. Now, he uses the language of dating, but we would just use the language of friends. Like, hey, have loads of friends, loads of guy friends, loads of girlfriends, be sociable, that's basically what he's saying. Now, if you translate Henry's instruction into the UK and you say, hey, date loads of people, that means something quite different to us because we think about dating terminology around exclusivity, not around having multiple irons in the fire. So what's it look like to be exclusive? Secondly, ghosting, which is a word that didn't even exist 5 years ago. But this is as you know, an extremely damaging practice which points out what I indicated initially, which is that self-esteem plays such a big part in the dating experience. If people are afraid of feedback, they just go silent. And many people mistreat others with the mystery of their absence online and also in person, and they don't understand the untold damage that ghosting causes. Humans have what we call bias to the negative. That means that in their brains, they assume the worst. And because they have a bias to the negative, they, from an evolutionary perspective anyway, are quite well defended. Because if you always think that the next tribe are particularly dangerous, you don't run in and try and hug them all because they might attack you and kill you. So you kind of hang back and you make a slow decision, assuming that they're going to kill you, because then if they don't kill you, that's a bonus. But if they do try and kill you, you're prepared. Now, if you apply that same methodology to dating, and someone ghosts you, you assume immediately that you're ugly, that you're unlovable, that you're horrible, that you're useless, you're everything negative in the book. So your estimation of why the relationship has ended is always far more significant than the estimation of why the person who's ghosting you decided that the relationship wasn't worth propagating. And because of the bias to the negative, ghosting has that particularly detrimental impact on our self-esteem. Now, I would want to say to all of you, we're going to talk about dating commitment at the end of this session, please give honest feedback to people who you don't want to pursue further connection with. And I would love you all to commit to never just vaporizing yourself online and leaving someone with ambiguity about the fact that actually you don't want to pursue that particular connection any further. I'd love you just to take a moment on those two, on the non-exclusive dating and on the ghosting. Again, just have a little buzz with the people around you. Which one of those do you find most difficult to deal with? That's the question. And then maybe you might try and say why. Just take a few minutes together. Okay, let's, sorry, not massive amount of time there, but it's great to hear. Again, I think I'm getting you to choose between two pretty miserable things there. But on one level, I want you to get a little bit angry about this stuff. You know, I want you to feel a little bit of what I call righteous anger. You know, I want you to feel like actually that's not okay. And everyone in the room right now agrees with you. It's not okay. This might be something that we experience, but it's not okay. And whenever we're in a circumstance when actually we are experiencing something negative, we often, again, we personalize it. And we believe, oh, well, that's just what's happening to me. But just a show of hands, who's experienced ghosting of some kind? Yeah, it's nearly everyone. Certainly 3/4 of us here. Who's thought that someone that they were interested in was not exclusively dating them? Quite a few of us, well, maybe just a little less than half there. So these are quite significant issues and challenges that we're facing right now, particularly, again, with online, although these things do happen in person. Let's talk about quickly through some of the other difficult challenges we face, what we call online statistical denigration. What this is this idea that actually we look at websites like Tinder or apps like Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and others. There's a sense that actually I am a statistic amongst all these other statistics, and my dating statistics denigrate my personality. So you prepare yourself for disappointment when you go online. So you spend a lot of time investing in a profile and maybe even putting quite a lot of money on the line to try and find opportunity to meet someone nice. And then you go on and you find actually that your initial freebie of 9 people suddenly appear, none of them are real or right. And then you pay your money and then you find actually there's one person out there that's not right. And then you go on again, there's no new likes, there's no new opportunities. And every time you go on, you feel a little less whole. And you ask bigger questions about yourself, like, surely there are there are 100,000 people on eHarmony. Why haven't I got at least 5 connections of any sort of value? And sadly, this experience of what we call online statistical denigration, the sense that compared to the quota of people out there, surely there must be more people for me, that leads us into, again, a state of low self-esteem, believing that actually we aren't matched up to much. Of course, the reality is that dating apps, although they're necessary, steal your dignity and they sell it back to you for the price of their subscription. The way marketing works is to rob you of your dignity and ask you to buy it back for the price of the product. When I drive my car, I find that the advert for the new car that's the same as mine but slightly newer is on the screen. So suddenly, and the guy looks more handsome and he looks happier than me. So when I look at him in my car, I think I need to have that car. Otherwise, I'm driving a rubbish car. Then I go to the garage, I buy the new car, drive away, and then I see another poster with the upgrade. Again, makes me feel less than. So when you go on a dating website, you need to look at it with suspicious eyes and recognize that it's actually created to monetize your emotional pain. Now, one of my friends actually runs one of these apps, so it's a bit embarrassing. Sorry, Paul, if you're watching. He's actually one of the good guys. But the challenge is that these sites are not a measure of who God created you to be. They are not a measure of your beautifulness, of your character, of your potential, or of your gifts, of your personality. They are not an estimator. And therefore, I want to encourage you not to use them as an estimator. Let's move on quickly, negging something that you might have heard of, but certainly I've seen a lot of aggressive approaches to dating, denigrating approaches to dating, and you might have heard of some of the books that have proliferated around those sort of techniques. They're psychological techniques that make people find people who are less attractive more attractive, and certain men particularly sadly use these techniques to pick up women by making them feel bad, by directly targeting their self-esteem. If someone in the Vauxhall Conference comes to the Premier League and says you're a rubbish footballer, they quickly get an opportunity on the pitch to score a goal. And so they've elevated themselves and they've denigrated a person in a different stratum. And that sort of technique is always damaging, always negative, always destructive, and never, ever worth listening to. Then you will have had sexual commoditizing. which if you've been on Tinder at all, I haven't because obviously I'm too old, but if you have been, you'll know that there is a hookup culture, which as a Christian you're not leaning towards because you're looking for lasting relationship. And so that is another challenge. How do you match expectation with someone who is looking for hookups rather than for relationships? And then there's also racial and social profiling, where again, someone's character can be denigrated because of the way in which they've been profiled by others. One of my dearest friends was on one of the dating websites, and he's Ghanaian origin, and he realized that actually he never got any dates. He was thinking, this is a racist platform. So he just pretended he was a white guy. And then this just for fun, see what would happen, see if he got more profiles. And then, amazingly, a beautiful white Irish girl put on there that she only wanted a Caucasian guy. She only wanted a white guy. And so she liked his profile, which was interesting when they first met. Because he turned up and she was like, where's my date? And Ollie turned up and was like, oh yeah, hi. I tell the truth generally, but I didn't know about this. They're now married and they have twins. We also need to break down our expectations and challenge ourselves about the tiny little box that we have for ourselves. That actually we are beautiful people created in the image of God, and we are a diverse people, and the beauty of Christ radiates through each and every one of you. So let's not narrow down the person who God might have for us, and let's open our minds to all sorts of possibilities. So here are a few of the difficult things. I don't want to dwell on them too long, but what I want to do is just empathize with you and say, look, here are some of the things you're dealing with. Hands up who relates to at least one of those categories on the board right now. Everyone in the room. Okay, so you've all had a difficult time. And I want to encourage you to say, actually, there are still good people out there. There is still a great opportunity out there. People are still meeting people out there, and there are good things ahead. So please don't lose yourself in sorrow when you read that particular one. Let's have a look at self-esteem for a minute. Sorry, that slide's slightly chopped up. Self-esteem. What is self-esteem, and why is it so important? Well, there's two sorts of self-esteem. There's what we call positive self-esteem and negative self-esteem. And we characterize this in psychology as the SOAs and the SOSs. SOS is help, I need help. SOS is low self-esteem or negative self-esteem actually comes from a sense of superiority. So low self-esteem says, I need to battle for my superiority in society at large. So it's externally generated, it's judgmental and subjective, it's immediate and fluctuating. I feel good about myself one minute, I feel terrible the next, and it's always comparative. So when my self-esteem is orientated in my sense of superiority, in the dating environment, I'm always vulnerable because I'm vulnerable to other people liking me or celebrating me or want to date me. And if I'm leaning on the dating experience to transform my heart, then I'm always going to be disappointed. Equally, if my sense of self-esteem is based on a sense of authenticity, like this is who I am, it's internally generated, it's not dependent on the environment I'm in. It's curious and objective, this is who I am and I'm bringing that to the table. It's enduring and resilient and it's non-comparative. So there's a difference between leaning into the dating environment, if you like, to boost my self-esteem, and leaning into the dating environment to say, look, this is who I am and I'm just trying to find someone who I can spend time with, who I can waste love on. And I want to just ask you, and it's a difficult and curious question, but how much has your sense of self-esteem become wrapped up in the dating experience? Just estimate for yourself. Has your self-esteem risen or fallen? And what can we do about it? Something you might want to spend a little bit of time journaling, because it's such a significant and important question. I believe that there is an opportunity for us to transform our dating experience from something that is progressively negative and damages our self-esteem to something that's progressively positive. That's always been my dream for the church. Specifically, that this environment wouldn't just like a mirror of the difficult things that go on in the world, which I know sometimes it does. So how can we change a culture so actually it transforms not just your experience, but the experience of others? And that's what we're really going to work on tonight. Let's think then for a minute about how then do we date? How would you like it to happen? What would you like to happen next? How are you going to choose? Because a key part of what I'm saying tonight is about how do we empower you to date in a different way, in a way that's actually good for you and good for others. That's the kind of key question. What depressed me about our studies at HDB was how many Christian people said, basically, I think I've had a better time with non-Christian guys than I have had with Christian guys. That was one of the things I heard. Or, to be honest, I feel like non-Christian guys are a bit more straightforward. I've heard that too. I don't want to, sort of, again, gender stereotype, but these are the sort of things we're coming through. Most sad, I don't actually think there's any difference between the dates I've gone on out of the nightclub as the dates I've gone on after meeting someone in church. Super depressing. If we're not doing it differently, then something's gone wrong. We've got to find a different way. Let's have a think about how we might date. Well, let's take a little bit of scripture. 1 Corinthians 13:4, it says, love is patient and kind. Kindness is one of the most undervalued characteristics in the world today. I would say like the first thing we want to choose is kindness as a core principle. And then Romans 12:9 says, let love be genuine. So this is about authenticity. How can we be authentic? Then Philippians 1:9, let love abound more and more. Dating is a process, not a one-stop shop. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then 1 Corinthians 5:9, when Paul's teaching about sex, we're not prioritizing sex. We're not using someone for our sexual ends. We're dating because we want a relationship, and sex is the ends of relational commitment. So this journey is about saying, actually, kindness wins, commitment wins, process wins, and the order in which things happen is significant and important. This is a journey towards lifelong commitment. Now, I want you just again spend a couple of moments with those around you, identifying characteristics that you think are most important in someone who you might date. Before we do that, Ephesians 4 says that humility and gentleness are core to character. What are you looking for in someone who you might date characteristically? Try and be as honest as you can. If it's still a fast car and broad shoulders or whatever it is, then that's still okay. But I want you just to say, just those around you, what are you actually looking for in someone? And try and be as honest as you can, but restate what it is that drives you into kind of the dating hot seat. What is it? And let's take just 5 minutes to do this. We'll come back just at 5:02. So, what I want to do is just hopefully that little interlude will have given you a moment just to remember what it is that you're seeking. And when we're in a situation where our esteem is low and when we're facing many challenges around dating, it's easy to forget what we're actually looking for. And I want to just really encourage you, if you found that little conversation helpful, when you get home, just write a few things down that remind you of what it is that, why you're in this. What is it you're looking for? And I want to just say again, I recognize how challenging this is at the moment in the context of the church. And you might think, well, Will, I want all these things. But actually, show me the guys that are, around that I could find, fulfillment in, or show me the girls that, meet these criteria. And I'm going to have to say to you, I can't. We need to work on that. But if you don't know what you want, you'll never find what you want. That's not to say that our tick list doesn't sometimes need to be amended. But in light of these things, what's most important to you? What I found really interesting on a number of the dating courses when I've sort of polled people, what are you looking for, is how often there's an incredible disparity between what people think people are looking for and what people are actually looking for. And so often I hear, I'm looking for someone who's really kind, understanding, and a really good listener, as my top three. And then, I would quite like them to be like quite tall, dark, and handsome as well, if that's okay. But it's super encouraging when you hear how many people write themselves off on the basis of just entirely of their looks. Actually, your character is king. It really is. And I've counseled so many people in marriage, and I can tell you that the ones who've chosen character first are very often the happy ones. Those ones who've chosen those superficial things first, 10 or 15 years down the line, haven't often got an awful lot of things to say to one another. So I just want to encourage you to say, actually, you're bringing a lot, you should expect a lot, but know what it is that you want on the outset. I have to include, just for those people who are particularly religious, if you like, in the religious sense of the word, to say that, why are we even doing this? And dating is not biblical. There is nothing in the Bible about dating. But dating is the thing that we do in the absence of arranged marriage. There is a lot of arranged marriage in the Bible. This is about arranging your own marriage, though, not getting your mum to do it, which is really for all of us. Because if that had happened, then I'm not sure what would happen to me. But this is a necessity. It's not biblical, but it's a necessity because this is effectively about you arranging your own marriage. Let's face it, it might be simpler if your family did it for you, but that's not how our culture works. So I just want to encourage you with that idea that actually this is still something you have to invest in. I don't come across it so often, but I still sometimes come across Christians who say things like, yeah, this is really interesting, Will, but I'm not really in it. I'm waiting for God to bring along the right person. Or, I'm not going to be proactive about this. I'm definitely not going on any dating websites because I think God is going to send someone round to ring my doorbell and they're going to say, hey, I'm Mr. Right, God sent me. And I think that's okay, because I believe in miracles and that's a position you could hold. And God might do that. I'm just saying to you, in my experience of marrying people, and I've married a lot of people, I haven't met anyone for whom that's been the case. Everyone who I've married have always said, I met this person, I saw this person, I reached out, I said hi, I met them online, that's how it happened. So there is occasionally a miracle, and so if you want to bank that one, then that's on you. But for everyone else, just to encourage you, it requires effort. Like many things in the Christian life, God is participating with us in this action. What's important is how we participate with him, how we do what we do with him. And also, I believe that God is at the center of the process. And when I think about my dating history, it's a bit of a disaster, as I said. So when I met Lou, my wife, I was like, oh man, this is so difficult. I really like her, but she's not going to like me. And I'm kind of tarnished and a mess. And I've had all these other relationships and she hasn't. And she's really godly. And I remember saying to her, Lou, it's quite, we had all these chats about my past and everything, and I felt really rubbish. I said, look, there's a lot of stuff I really regret. And she said, well, look, I don't want to live in regret because it takes a lot of manure to make a beautiful rose, which I kind of took as a compliment. Secondarily, she said, whilst there's lots of stuff there that's difficult, she said, I can't you can't edit that out, because you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be the person you were if you hadn't walked through all that stuff. So, whatever your circumstances right now, recognize that God is part of a redemptive process in your life. And actually, God is going to redeem all things in you and with you and through you, and that you can trust him for that. But you have to participate in this process, and that's challenging. But what's important with all things world and church is that we participate as the children of God, and we choose those rules which he has established for us. I was thinking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were taken into exile. They chose to not eat the food that was on the table. They said, look, just give me the vegetables, and look at us, watch us, see if we don't look fitter and healthier and stronger than those other people who you've brought with us. And sure enough, they were fitter and healthier, and they're given positions of authority. Like, you don't have to do it all the same way as the culture to win. That's the key point. So, dating isn't biblical. What then should we do? How are we going to do this? Well, I told you Henry Cloud's book didn't really appeal to me, but one that really did, the one that I really love, is Andy Stanley's book called New Rules on Love, Sex and Dating. And he said one of the most important things I think I can say tonight, which is, how do we do this? We become the person that the person we're looking for is looking for. Now, what Andy's saying is that we can spend an awful lot of time looking for the one. I definitely spend some time doing this and sort of scanning the environment, and again today looking online to try and find the one person, the one. But actually, what about spending that time not scanning the environment to find the one that completes you, but actually to become the person you're looking for is looking for? Now, you've already identified the values of the sort of person that you would like to date. But now reverse those values and ask yourself, do you think you would match the person that you've set those values for? You see, I was looking for something spectacular and incredible, but I wasn't thinking about that spectacular, incredible person's estimation of what I would be like. If I spent more time working on my character than working on my six-pack, I might have had more success earlier on. I was interested in, if you like, the superficial, but I was wanting someone who's interested in the heart. And I want to just encourage you for that, to say the dating experience should not be, in my view, all just about what's on out there, like who is this person I'm going to find, but it should equally be about what's going on in here. How can I be transformed through this process, through this experience? Am I reflecting the values that I'm looking for in somebody else? So Andy says, look, let's not lose ourselves looking for someone, but let's find ourselves looking for someone. Which is a really great principle. I don't want to lose myself looking for someone else. I want to find myself whilst I'm looking for someone else. Who am I? Now, what's important to me? What do I value in myself? Like, what would someone else value in me? Those principles can transform your dating experience and improve your self-esteem to the point when actually you've really got something to share. Because when you meet someone who just wants sexual contact, or when you just want someone who wants 9 hookups in a month, you're suddenly going, actually, this is me, and that doesn't kind of fit, with what I'm looking for, with who I am. And confidence begets confidence, because confidence in itself is attractive. You think about it for a moment. You might have met a really, really beautiful girl or a really, really handsome guy and spent some time with them, but their lack of confidence has moved you from thinking, wow, they're the most attractive person I've ever met, into thinking, oh, I'm not sure I'm really there with that. But equally, you've met someone who's less attractive on paper, but their sense of confidence has really drawn you in. You thought, wow, this person really knows who they are. I find that amazing. They're really attractive to me. So attraction's important, but it's not always what you think. Very often it's rooted in someone who really knows themselves. And I want to sort of encourage you to think that God's agenda for us in all of this is always that we become more like his son, Jesus. Dating is painful and sacrificial, but it's also formational. And people who take that approach to it are often transformed in it, but often also find success. That kind of confidence to say, I'm going to date in this way. That's my decision. That's my choice, and that's what I'm standing by. How then can it go wrong? Well, it can go wrong like this, what we call self-referencing disasters. Now, you will have heard, it's really awkward, but you will have heard Christian couples saying things like, Oh, I saw them and I just knew they were the one. And you're like going, oh, really? And like, how did you meet? Well, you know, it's like a miracle of God. And you're like going, well, yeah, but how is it a miracle of God? Well, you know, someone had a word of prophecy and the name Jane. And then Jane came in and I just saw her and it was love at first sight. And you're like going, really? Is that really what happens? And so you read this story from this couple, which looks incredible, but also unreachable. And then you think that's how people actually meet. Can I just give you a little bit of insider detail from someone who's been married for quite a long time? If you ever said that someone else might have been the one, other than your partner, you're going to be in serious trouble for like at least a week. Your partner's probably not going to talk to you very much. But the reality is that relationships are built and they are not found. That is the truth. You build a relationship. You don't actually find a relationship. So you've been sold a myth by loads of Christian couples who've given you an impression that the one thing is about there being one person in the entire world who's compatible to you. The fact is, you're compatible with half of the human race. The reality is that actually you could fall in love with multiple people. You could end up marrying multiple people in your life because there are multiple people who you could build a good relationship with. And I know this is uncomfortable for some of you because you've held on to the one myth for quite a long time, but I just really want you to know that actually the one myth doesn't really exist until you've got married. You see, Lou is, to me, the one. I could tell that same story about how I met her at the college canteen and she was talking about modern art and I just knew she was the one. And then I secretly orchestrated things so I could become a rowing coach, so I could get close to her, which sounds creepy. But that's what I did. And then I befriended her. And then before you know it, we were dating and then had to confess that I'd actually organized myself to be her rowing coach. So the point is, it sounds amazing saying that someone is just the one and that actually, you know, this is some mystical thing. And yes, in the providence of heaven, looking back, as God redeems all things, a bit like a sat-nav, maybe God did have this plan. But for your experience, you need to know that there are innumerable compatible people, but you don't find a good relationship, you build a good relationship. And my mistake with Lou was definitely going in trying to woo Lou. And Laura knows Lou is not wooed. She is like straight talking. You know, she's like scratched beneath the surface, authentic, give it to me real, I'm only interested in the truth. So if you're trying to be suave and sophisticated, that doesn't count for much. And that's who God had for me. But that was a process. And some Christians talk about being like, you're one half of a broken vase on the table, and they're another half of a broken vase on the table, and then mystically they come together to become a more whole vase. And then the Holy Spirit pours in the top, and then it leaks out the bottom and blesses other people. Yeah, I've heard that one. But that's not true. The reality is that you are a broken vase on the table. They are also a broken vase on the table, a different broken vase. And you're kind of shuffling up to one another, trying not to stab each other with the sharp bits. Now, the fact is that that's really what dating relationships are like. And that's really what marital relationships are like. It takes a lot of grace. But let's get away from this idea that I'm on a search to find the one. And let's think instead around building a relationship that lasts. So when you're dating, don't just immediately go, my instinct says no. We'll talk a bit more about that next week. But actually ask yourself more questions. Could this be built into something great? That is a key question for our generation because actually the off-the-peg idea has proliferated to an extent where it's hard to get beyond it because we make such immediate decisions about whether someone's for us or against us. So, let's get away from the lock and key and let's say these are all options, all possibilities. What could I build here today? I want to take another brief break and I'd love you just to spend a moment with people around you again. Just have a little chat about the one principle and if you're bold, maybe have you ever looked back on a relationship and thought, maybe that could have worked, but at the time I thought no. So just take a moment Do you think the one principle is significant? What do you think about what I've just said about compatibility and building a relationship rather than finding a relationship? Just again, just 3 or 4 minutes together, just buzzing in groups. Okay, let's come back together again. We've just got a couple more slides for this evening, and then we'll hopefully have a little space for some questions as well before we head over to the pub. Great. Lots to discuss in the pub, and hopefully the one principle is still quite contentious and hot for some topic discussion. But I'd love you to kind of wrestle with that idea a bit more and actually then start thinking. You can see how this could transform your process, can't you? If you looked at the process slightly differently, it would also increase your bandwidth massively because you'd be thinking, hold on a minute, I've been looking for this, but actually maybe this is the same thing, but just in process. And I would really want to encourage you for that because I realized I threw away a lot of relationships that ostensibly were good because I was looking for the one. And actually, ultimately, I built a relationship that was good, even when I knew that there was actually a lot to work on. And so that mentality doesn't just keep you in a good date, it also keeps you in a good marriage. I've broken my rule about 5 times already tonight. But the reality is that couples who continue to build, continue to fall in love. But if you thought that you had the whole thing when you got to the altar, you've basically got no hope. I really see that so significantly, like that attitude to build if you think you've found the one, you're just going to spend the rest of your life being disappointed. But if you start with the idea that actually you're building something great and you keep building that thing, you're going to end up something absolutely incredible. So it's that trajectory mentality, build, 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 which will transform your experience of dating. Let's just ask another hard question, which is, are my goal and my process really linked? Now, this is particular to online dating, but it could also be in the context of our face-to-face life. Now, the challenge I pick up when talking to quite a lot of people, particularly about online dating, is that their transition from online to real life is really, really unusual. The actual transition that they make to actually see someone in the real is often incredibly slow. Now, what seems to happen is that there's a sort of like spin the wheel, spin the wheel, spin the wheel. Yes, lots of nicer people, start online conversations with quite a lot of people, but when do those conversations actually migrate into, I'd like to meet you in flesh? And I think there's a disjuncture there between the process and the goal. It seems to me if your goal was really to meet one person and develop a relationship, you would move from online into the real world relatively quickly with all the safety parameters that we know about in place. But if we are just coasting online, it seems like it's open to a sort of emotional abuse. And by that, I mean a slightly benign abuse, where I basically feed off the fact that I've got some nice people to talk to online that give me a bit of a boost to feel well about myself at the end of the day. And I've never done online dating, but I can imagine if I was 19 again and I was doing online dating, I'd think, I'm quite busy with my sports. I quite like my sports, actually, quite like my smelly sports kit. So I'm going to sit here online and chat to some really lovely girls and not go out and just eat kebab and feel good about myself and then maybe play a bit more sports. And then when I can be bothered, I might get dressed up when I can be bothered. And actually, probably not going to meet any of these people in the real world anyway, so I'll just find someone in a bar instead. So, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? I said you could boo and hiss at any point you liked. But there's such a danger that there's a disconnect between our process and our goal. I want to say to you, can you make a commitment to move from online into face-to-face within 2 weeks? I would suggest it's pretty challenging for you if you're going to stay online for more than that time. How's that work for you? And are you receiving something from the process which actually doesn't link to your goal at all? And are the people you're talking to online in that same juncture? And I would say if you're a victim of that, test the waters by saying, I'd really like to meet you face to face. Can we meet? We've been talking online for the last 10 days. Can we meet this weekend? If it's, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to meet yet, I'm kind of in my sports kit eating a kebab, then I suggest you might move on. The danger is, in psychological terms, we carry something inside us called the sociometer. The sociometer is our estimation of whether we're accepted or rejected. And the sociometer typically lies, it's like a mirror darkly. And so the vulnerability of our sociometer means that we're always looking around to perceive whether or not we might be accepted or rejected. The online enables us to kind of feel more acceptance than rejection. If we're winning, we feel more rejection than acceptance if we're losing. But we can use it, we can manipulate it to feed the sociometer. Oh, I'm doing really well. As I said, it goes back to that kind of statistical blessing rather than statistical denigration. I'm like, oh, I'm doing really well, I'm feeling really good about myself. I've got 9 dates lined up online. I just want to say, let's not go there. Let's try and move things along and stay linked to our goal rather than getting lost in process. What's your process? And are you hiding or defending from real rejection by avoiding face-to-face contact? So that's a key question for you. Now, part of that might be what we call fixing our chooser. So my son Joe, he used to love making these things. And he'd come and go, Dad, do my chooser, do my chooser. I'd be like, okay, Joe, yellow, or were, 4, 2, 3, 4, open that one, you are a poo. Right, I'm like, okay. Like, he'd say, Dad, don't worry, Dad, choose again. So I'm like, 1, 2, okay, I'll go blue, air, 3, 1, 2, 3, open up, you are a poo. And he's like absolutely wetting himself. He thinks it's absolutely hilarious. And then I grab the chooser off him, open up the chooser, and they all say you are a poo. And he thinks it's classic. But for some of us, that's our dating chooser. We found ourselves constantly choosing the wrong person, even though we think we're making a different choice. Like something within us, within the chooser itself, is broken. And part of knowing ourselves is also exploring our dating history and asking ourselves, actually, am I drawn to a particular thing which ultimately ends badly? And I realized that I had something I'd call a George and the Dragon complex, where I found that I dated 3 people in succession who all had the same issue, and something in me was broken because I kept wanting to choose people who needed help. I'm a natural kind of helpy kind of person. So if I'm feeling vulnerable, how can I make myself feel useful and attractive? Oh, well, I'll be helpful. My chooser was broken because rather than choosing someone on the basis of a real attraction and connection, I was choosing someone who I thought would need me. Now that's a broken chooser right there. What might be true about your chooser? Because again, if you don't explore your relational history or lack of, then you will not know what's driving you towards certain dating behaviors. And again, these are tough questions to get date ready, which is what today is all about. Like, what commonality can you see in the relationships you've had in the past? I counseled a lady who'd been in 3 domestically abusive relationships, one after the other. 2 had been marriages. She said, I couldn't believe it that my second husband beat me on the first night that we were married after I'd left an abusive marriage. She said, I just couldn't believe it. And we had several really amazing conversations. She said, you know what, I realize, like, obviously the blame is in the abuser, but something in me gave them the impression that that's what I was worth. She said, something in me gave them permission, unconsciously, that I was that kind of person that they could subjugate. And she said, not anymore. She recognized that her chooser was broken. And then this lady gained incredible self-esteem and faith. But for you, what commonality is there in your dating story? And what do you think you might be giving off or choosing specifically in line with your sense of self-esteem? One of the most important questions you can ask yourself in preparation for dating is, how can I fix my chooser? And one way in which you can do that is to talk to a trusted friend. This is one of those times when you really need a really trusted friend, because they tell you something really true and you're like, I really hate you now and I don't think we can be friends anymore. But if you've got a friend who knows some of the people you've dated in the past, I really want to encourage you to ask them, can I just ask you what you think about my previous dates or my previous partners even, or even if you've been married before, my previous husband or wife? Can you just give me a little bit of insight as my friend about what you saw? So often that friend will say, you know what, I always kind of thought that relationship wasn't right. And I thought you were different around that person in these ways. That is what you're looking for. How was I different? How was I different in that setting? What did I shut down? What did I close down? What did I augment for the sake of staying in that relationship? That wisdom will transform your dating future. Someone very dear to me went through a succession of terrible relationships. Praise God, she's now really happily married. But she chose 3 people who, as someone close to her, I could have identified literally, if there were peas in a pod or cards in the deck, I would be like, no, like the moment they sort of appeared on the scene, I'd be like, no, not again. And of course you're like, oh yeah, they're all right. They're all right. What do you say? Oh yeah, no, they're really nice. I mean, they're like, wow, they're really public school, whatever it is. How do you say these things? I don't know. But yeah, I remember like sort of coasting along, trying to like make it okay, and then just being like, all of them, of course, ended in disaster. Why? Because someone's chooser was broken. They kept choosing the same thing. Well, our final slide for tonight is simply this. Let's make some decisions together and set up what we call a dating contract. This isn't a contract that's legally binding, by the way, so please, I'm not going to get pens and pencils out for you to sign anything. This is just for you to think about. What power do we have to make decisions? The first one is the decision to leave the person you date better off. Can you imagine if everyone on the dating scene decided just for that one first clause? Can you imagine what the world would be like? Wouldn't it be amazing? I just want to bless you. I just want to encourage you. I don't want to marry you. Actually, I think this situation is over, but I just want to say what an amazing person you are. Genuinely, these are the things I love about you, and these things you could improve for next time. So if we have a heart decision to leave everyone better off having been with us, that is the first step towards something completely different. Secondarily, don't manipulate or spiritualize. If I had £1 for everyone who said, oh, God told me I'm going to marry you. I'm sorry, I'm actually married already. Oh, that's kind of weird. Then, we'd be a rich man. One of my friends is a missionary in Afghanistan, and he's really back now, but, he was always sort of at conferences, and people would fall in love with him because of the amazing story. He's a very handsome guy, but also the stories he told. People kept coming up, I've had a word. It's you and me. It's you and me. It's like, it's really strange, but the Lord didn't reveal that to me. He revealed more of a sort of an image of the kind of calf of Baal burning on the hillside. The kind of challenge is that we can spiritualize or manipulate, and we should never include God in our story. I would say about this in week 3, but most importantly, God told me I'm not supposed to be with you. Okay, it's never God's fault when we finish a relationship. Thirdly, dating is not a fix for your insecurities. Again, we have insecurities. The dating scene can seem like something that can help us out of those, or even finding someone can help us get out of our insecurities. It's not about that. It's not for that purpose. It's actually for you to express an overspill of the love that you yourself have received. And we said already, be honest and kind. Those two things are so important. Too honest without kindness, we're just being brutal. Too kind without honesty, then we're just being fluffy. We need honesty and kindness. We need compassion and kindness to make any relationship work. And I added this one in this year. Don't do anything online you wouldn't do offline. And I think that's a really core principle for online dating. So, for example, if I was dating and I went to a bar and I saw a really lovely girl and I got her number and I said, I'll call you on Monday, I wouldn't then put that number in my pocket and then go around the bar and find another girl and ask her for her number and say, I'll call you on Tuesday. And then get another girl and then do the same for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and then go home feeling really happy with myself. I wouldn't do that. So then why would I organize online dates with 7 different people in 7 different days? I don't know. It doesn't seem right to me. So don't do anything online that you wouldn't do offline. That's your dating contract. And I'd love you to just hold on to that and then think, actually, how can I apply that to my life in the week ahead? Now, I'm going to hand over to Laura for a couple of minutes, and then we are going to head, hopefully, to the pub. Laura.
Thanks so much, Will. Let's give him a big hand. Thank you, Will. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like my head's quite full, and actually with loads of questions and things that I want to go away and process and journal. Will encouraged us to journal. So, I just encourage you as well to go away and talk to that trusted friend, ask those questions. And I think I just really want to encourage you, if you're sitting there feeling like you've got loads of questions and actually maybe feeling a bit, actually, this is really hard. I thought I was going to come and learn all this stuff and it was all going to be amazing. And maybe if you're not feeling like that, please don't be discouraged. Please talk to trusted friends, pray about it. I know we've been told not to over-spiritualize it, but please do pray about it as well. Journal and come back next week. This is a 3-part series, so tonight is not it. There is more, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So much of this, as I said at the beginning, is about opening up the conversation, so not just being one night and a fix-all. So, please do talk to your friends and talk with us. And if you've got friends who maybe couldn't make it tonight, couldn't come or didn't want to come or maybe didn't know about it, please do invite them. It's not too late. We can send out the link of tonight to those people so they can catch up and then come next week. It's everybody is welcome, so please do encourage those guys to come as well. We're going to finish with a prayer in a second, and then we're going to go over to the pub. But there was something else I was going to say. What was it? I don't know, it's gone. It can't be that important. Father, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for Will and his wisdom. Thank you that you've brought us all here. And Lord, we just give all of our thoughts and our conversations this evening to you. And we pray, Lord, that you would be with us and just that we would be encouraged, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're going to go over to the pub. Open invite to everyone. So it's if you don't know where it is, so we're just going to go to the White Horse. So come out here, take a left, and then it's the kind of pub directly opposite. Maybe someone who definitely is going to go could lead the way. Is there anyone from St D's who's definitely going to the pub? Put your hand up. Oh, yes, brilliant. Yes, well done. So these guys are going. So if you're not sure where you're going, follow those guys, and we will see you over there. And hopefully see you all next week as well.